Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Authentic Conversations, presented by Transition Clarity. I'm your host, Adele Bernard, and today it's my pleasure to bring on Amy Blakeslee of Calm Ocean Coaching. And as we get started, I'm going to ask her to share a little bit about you, how you got into coaching, what brought you into coaching, and the synopsis, so we can go from there. So welcome.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm really honored and happy to be here today. Well, as far as getting into coaching, I had actually have a long career in technology. So in the corporate world, and which I'm very blessed to have had that career, but it did not really satisfy, it didn't leave me feeling fully fulfilled in my life. I felt like there was something greater for me to do in my life. And I had felt that throughout my entire career and my whole life. And as I was on the journey to discover what is really my purpose, it became very clear that my purpose is to help other people who are on the same journey that I was on. So I used the modality life energy coaching that I used to just greatly change my life around. And I just felt very called that this is where I need to be in my life, and to bring what I call our soul mission to life through it.
Okay, I want to touch on that, that calling to be doing something different, because as we know, we're both from the corporate world, and there's nothing wrong with the corporate world. We all need the corporate world in some form or fashion. I too was in the corporate world going, there's got to be something better. There's got to be something bigger. And it started that internal, as a lack of a better word, the spiritual journey.
Mm-hmm.
How did that spiritual journey start opening up for you to say, this corporate world just maybe isn't fitting for me anymore? So where is spirit leading me? Where,
Right. Yeah, my spiritual journey happened a little bit differently for me. I had a very challenging childhood with a lot of trauma, and I was on my own at a very young age when I was 17. And because I didn't have anyone to support me, I had to make decisions about my life, right? And at first I started around, kind of bouncing around. I call it the school of hard knocks, right? And I had been an honor student when I was in school, but I'm out doing jobs like waitressing and stuff like that, right? So I'm not living to my full potential at all. And somebody told me, like, you need to go into computers. And so that's how there was a very easy bachelor's of science degree program. Not easy in that the content was easy, but the format was really easy for me to be able to do. So I went into computer technology really more from a survival perspective, right? And luckily I was very good at it. I had never written a single line of code before I made this big investment. Luckily, I'm very analytical too, so I was able to do that. But when I look back at my whole life, when I was a child, very small child, I always wanted to show everybody how magnificent they were, even my little friends or whatever. When they were upset, I wanted to do everything I could to let them see that they're more than just this hurt or what somebody else said to them or whatever. And then as I got a little older, I wanted to become a teenager, and then later I wanted to become a psychiatrist, which I think is common when people are going through a lot of challenges in their life. They look to things like that. So I'm in the corporate world and in technology, and have very good jobs. I've worked for some very great companies and with some very talented people. Mm-hmm. But I also had this underlying anxiety that was really starting to rear its ugly head and get very intense. And the anxiety was really caused from unresolved childhood trauma. But I also see it as a way my soul was using it to wake me up. Like, this is who you're not supposed to be this, you're out of alignment with who you are. So that is I say, when you suffer, you seek. And I started my seeking. And that is how I became awakened by the book The Secret. Actually was the first book, and it's funny because when I saw it was in the Time magazine, and there was a review for it. It wasn't even a good review, but it was like, I was like, I have to get this book now. I have to go get it. And that set me off on a path of working with, master spiritual teachers and coaches, and just hundreds of books, anything I could get my hands on, to really understand, what was the anxiety, who was I, why was I here? And so that's how I came to my spiritual awakening. And of course, once you spiritually awaken, the corporate world can become a very challenging place to be in. So that is part of the reason why I work with people who are in the corporate world now, is because I really feel that every person that we can transition them out of that fear-based ego mode into a love or heart-based mode. Even just one person, one leader at the top, has the potential to really shift that entire organization. So I do, I think the corporate world is, obviously it's a good place. It brings a lot to people, and,
Yep.
salaries, food, and, you can bring your stuff. It's just, it needs to shift from fear to love. So.
Well, and that brings up a good point of the spiritual leaders who we listen to and follow. And I think Matt Kahn says it the best. Everything is happening for you, not to you.
Yeah.
And you think about, like, especially for women, wearing pearls. That pearl has to have a lot of grit before it becomes a pearl.
Mm-hmm.
Or the diamond in the rough, right? And so just because it might seem hard or difficult, or this doesn't make sense, doesn't mean you're not becoming the diamond that you are meant to be, to shine your light in the world. And I just want to kind of make a little joke, because as we were talking before, you said, but you have that analytical side. You have that, right? And I'm like, yeah, you went for psychiatrist, and I went for psychologist in the corporate. Because I'm like, sure, come back to me. I'll feel your feelings. I'll help you through it. I didn't want to do the technical side.
Right.
Right.
Well, that's so funny because, the work that I do in energy work, it's really all about raising your consciousness. So finding all of the beliefs and, energy within you that is negative and limiting and not aligned to your true authentic self, and transforming them to love and raising it. Well, consciousness is so complex, right? And I love that about it. And it allows me to use my analytical mind. And I've had people who have remarked to me about my transition saying, well, I can't believe you went from doing these big data and analytical systems to this energy work. And I'm like, well, we're programming.
It's the same metrics.
One's programming systems and the other one's kind of deprogramming your mind or your being, right? To expose who you really are. So I find it a really fascinating topic as well.
Well, and it's interesting how when people are saying, well, they don't understand it, and it's like, because they haven't awoken to being in the matrix.
Yes.
Right. The Matrix wasn't just a movie. Right.
Actually,
and it's funny because I wish I could remember, but someone said recently that, like, well, what's Marvel doing? What's it like? I don't get it. And they literally said Marvel's doing what they're supposed to be doing to wake up the Matrix. And I was like, that was on normal broadcast. Like, okay, because I don't get the movies. I will never go see them. I'm like, I don't get it. But right. I also know I've been awake for a long time, so I don't need to get it.
Right.
I'm past the Marvel movies, but I appreciate them for what they're trying to do for humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care how you wake up. I'm saying the time is to wake up.
Right.
The time is to start questioning what you've been told. Is this my truth, or is it just a tape in our head?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why I always say, one way that I pose it to people is like, you can rewrite your story. You can rewrite it. I say, rewrite your success story. And people do have to realize all of these things that they're thinking about themselves. They're likely things that either their parents said to them or society, like we know how society and the media and all of that is huge around programming people's minds, right? And also what goes into it when you're a child, especially, ages 0 to 7, your mind is a sponge, and you draw your own conclusions about things that probably had no meaning. But when you're a child, you're like, oh my God, it's like they said that thing to me and it really crushed me. And now that goes into your subconscious and starts creating, relations and connections with things that just perpetuate throughout your life until you go back and address that. And so we do also carry within us our ancestral history. So not only are we all dealing with what's happening in the modern world today, but we do have these underlying beliefs, especially women, a lot of beliefs around gender roles that apply today. And, there's old religious beliefs from our ancestors that are still in us, where we're making some associations, like how we're, even dealing with authority figures in work or government or whatever. So there's a lot there to unpack.
Well, and that's very telling, especially in the work I do, is like I will go through the generational lines, right? And like, especially if they're in a meditative state, and it's like, so when they're having, like, say, a flashback or whatever, seeing a different timeline, it's like, well, where is this timeline? And it's like, well, I'm a man, but in this life they're a woman, and it's like, okay, so what's the man doing, and who are they interacting with? And then all of a sudden they go, oh my gosh, I understand why I'm having troubles with my teenager.
Yeah,
because the roles are reversed. Right. And it's and I'm finding, even with my own self, it's like, you wake up and you're just kind of going, okay, body, come back, because you're just like, is it a dream? Is it a realignment of different lifetimes to help me go forward in this lifetime? What is it? I don't know. I'll just lay in bed till I fully come back. Right. Because, and that's the biggest thing, is like, well, people say, well, I don't dream. It's like, we all dream. It's just a matter of remembering. But we also have to remember that's when our soul is doing its work, for us to be in this body. It goes off and does whatever it has to do, so we can have more information and understanding, so we can move forward in this life.
Exactly. Yeah. And I do believe that we do some traveling. I had a period of a couple of years where I would have dreams and end up in certain scenarios, not the same. Sometimes they felt the same, but I remember being there with beings, not always human, but just being there with beings. And they were all very familiar. I'm like, oh, it's you again, just kind of interesting. And I haven't thought about that in a couple of years. I obviously haven't had those dreams in a while, but.
Well, and for me, my dreams are more feelings, because I tend to be more on the empathic of feeling. And if I need more information, I'll say, okay, that dream didn't make sense, but this is how I felt. Can you please show me?
Yeah, it's interesting.
Right. And then I'll get different, scenarios, whatever. And it's really interesting, because all the spiritual teachers are talking about being in that flow, having that energy, or the vibration at the higher vibration, so you can attract what you're truly wanting. And we hear it. And then yesterday, I think I actually fully embraced it, because I was supposed to have a call, I canceled, fine. I ended up having usually my Sunday mornings are insane. It was a calm, quiet one. So then I go and volunteer with the equine program, and I ended up with the hard kid, the first class, and we giggled and laughed. And it was like, oh, this is amazing. The horse was amazing. We're all having a good time. Then we come to the second class, and that student had spoke up at the end of the week last week, and then we're trying all these new things, and all of a sudden she's just like, that was the best Thanksgiving present ever. And I said, why? And she goes, because I got to do it on my own. And I said, because you spoke up. You actually followed what we were asking you to do, to relax into your body, to relax into how the horse was moving, right? And I said, you learned it really fast.
Right.
And look at the progress that you got to make. And so when I came home, I just felt so relaxed and at peace. And I'm like, this is what everyone keeps on talking about, including myself.
Right.
So hard for us to understand it on our own.
Right. Yeah, I've come to look at it a little differently myself recently. Like you had mentioned, life is happening for us. I feel like
Mhm.
life happens through us. So it's
Yeah.
really what is happening, based on our level of consciousness. And
Mhm.
we are we're the studio, the screenplay writer, the director, producer, actors, and audience of our life, right? And I used to be very much about, okay, I'm going to manifest or attract. And I found that to be, at times, it was very frustrating for me because I would be putting my affirmations out there or whatever. And
Mhm.
like, it feels like it's a very forced doing thing. Like I have to do something to attract,
Yeah.
I have to do something. But I've come to believe like everything that you put out there, it exists already. It's just not in this dimension. So I've changed it to be like, okay, I'm going to materialize that now. It's going to materialize in the physical world for me. And it's taken a lot of resistance off of it for me. And I've had, I'll even do little quick things like, okay, even just walking my dog who likes to pull one way all the time. Like she doesn't want
Yeah.
to come down to go in, and I'll be like, okay, I'm putting it out there to my spiritual support team. And I just say, hey, have her turn. She's going to turn down and walk down this thing very quickly. And I release it. And she did, So even just simple things like that, because of course, when we want to go for the bigger things, that's where all of our beliefs and, limiting beliefs start flying in our face. And we're saying, oh, that the affirmation doesn't work. Like if I say,
Mhm.
oh, I'm attracting 5 clients this week. Well, all of the beliefs that don't align to that are going to come up and show themselves. They're going to rear their ugly heads, and people are going to say, well, that means affirmations don't work. But what it's doing is working perfectly, and it's
Yeah.
showing you exactly where you're in or out of alignment. So once you have that, it's really good feedback. You have that, then you can say, okay, let's dig into where these limiting beliefs are coming from and change that energy behind them. So
Well, and I
yeah.
think I'll take in a different tangent just because why not? We all learn from each other. And is with the affirmation and or the intention or whatever word you want to use, right? Is one thing. And I'm saying, is my vibration or my beingness at the level to attract the new clients that are trying to find me?
Right.
If I'm not, they're not finding me.
Right.
And like we've talked about this about, like, are we chasing people to be coming into our network, or are we allowing them to come?
Mm-hmm.
And I used to chase. I'd be the first person to say, like, well, I could help them and they could do it. And it's like, they never asked. And I was like, dang, that was a spiritual whack. Right. And now I just, hey, I'm here. If you want to connect, great. If you don't, all good. You're not part of my tribe. And it's been so rewarding that way
Yeah.
because, like, I met you and I'm like, this is a great relationship. And I
Yeah.
look forward to seeing it grow, right? Because I wasn't going, knock, 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 knock. And you're like, stop it. I'm like, but I want to help. I want to work with you. I want to, and you're like, stop it.
Right.
I become that annoying pest that we don't like.
Yeah.
Instead of going, if it feels right to you, connect. If it doesn't, move on. Right.
Yeah.
And I think we have to look at our clients that way too, right? Because
Exactly.
um, as a coach, we can't attract what we haven't gone through.
Right.
So if we're not willing to stretch ourselves for that higher level or that different vibration, I shouldn't say higher because it's just a different vibration of beingness, those 5 new clients can't vibrate to you.
Right. Well, it's interesting about that in the work that I do, which is life energy coaching, which is a very specific modality. It uses a very specific field of very high frequency, 12 dimensional, supported by archangels and all of that. And whether I have someone doing a program that I've created or right before we meet, I actually go through a transition in my energy so that I'm prepared to hold the space for them at everything that had not already, that I haven't already addressed. So it helps to me make the space more safe and loving for them when we're meeting. Actually, the energy transformation is easier for them. And it also broadens my field then that I have to support people with. So I keep expanding as well through them. But it is interesting when it first started happening to me, when I first started doing this, I'm like, oh my God, why am I having all of this like crazy anxiety energy? Where's it coming from? And then you're like, oh, okay.
You're
Now,
fine.
okay, whatever. Yeah, I know.
Well, it's funny because I used to question why I find recovering addicts. I'm like, I don't get it. And then one actually enlightened me. He goes, I don't understand how you don't get it. And I go, explain it. He goes, because you are showing us that we can always be the light. And I'm like, oh. He goes, you have that connection. You're not searching for it. You're being connected to source, God, whatever you want to say, right? And being the light. He goes, so we, coming out of addiction, go, oh, this is what we're trying to get through every day choosing to say yes, to stay sober or whatever, right? And I'm like, cool. But I never understood it. Years I've been trying to figure out why addicts love me.
Right.
In recovery.
Right.
Not so much not in recovery, but once they're in recovery, they flock to me and I'm like, this is funny.
Yeah, that's great. They were reading. I do, your point is, I do attract people who are pretty much in the same spots that I've been in. So it's absolutely true. And of course, they give me the most joy to work with because I can put myself in their shoes and I can see their transformations. So yeah, it's a blessing. I mean, when you can look back at your life experience and realize that things happened the way they did. Like, so with my book that I wrote, my book,
share your book.
Awakening Through Anxiety, A Journey to Finding One's True Self. So this is really my journey of awakening. And I do share my personal story in it, my childhood and all of the tribulations and all of that. But I also share things that helped me to get rid of the anxiety, transform the anxiety, I should say. I shouldn't say get rid of it. One thing that I came to really feel is that, and I hated it. I hated my anxiety. I cursed that all the time because it was producing some pretty bad symptoms in me. Like I couldn't sign my name in front of people. I was afraid, and I would shake because of that. All these things. But I see my anxiety, if I get it, which I don't get anxiety near, maybe 5% of what I used to get. And that's for new situations. But now I see it as just a partner. It's my body very perfectly showing up because our body is our subconscious mind. My body is perfectly showing me up where I am out of alignment with my authentic self and who I came here to be. So I do see it as a blessing. And when I wrote the book, one of the publishers that I initially worked with, I ended up self-publishing it. But, when we first put the first draft out there and he read it, he was like, how do you feel like seeing this all out there? And, I'm like, I just feel like I lived it so I could tell it. And so if I change even one person's life with this story, it will have been worth it. And thankfully, many people have told me that I've helped to either resolve things in their childhood. One woman who didn't realize that she was an empath and that a lot of the stuff that was showing up in my body that I thought was mine wasn't mine either. So I talk about that in the book. And she said, reading that, she realized she was an empath. She had no idea. And she was able to bring it under control. And for the first time ever in her marriage, her and her husband and the kids went away for a weekend. She said that was the first time I ever was in the moment after I realized this. I did some of your exercises about being present and all of that. So yeah, just, that stuff like that makes my heart sing too.
Well, and it's really important. So I'll take it a step further. So anxiety is being too much in the future. Depression is too much in the past.
Yeah.
So either one is happening, that is your body saying, hello, check in with me because you're not here, you're not present. And it comes back to the presence within you, the beingness of you, because those things can't happen if you're present, because in the presence, you are in the flow, you are in that unconditional love.
Right. I will say that there is a time, though, being present, even because of being somebody who picks up on energy of everyone. I thought I was having anxiety a lot of times, but I was really picking up other people's energy. So you can still have all of those feelings in your body, but until you're aware to know what's really mine, what's not. And
well, and that's what I agree with what you're saying, is because it's like, okay, so if the anxiety is coming, the first thing I say is stop.
Yeah.
Where am I? Is this mine? Do I have to do anything with it? Move it on up.
Yeah.
If it's mine, I stop, I deal with it, I handle it at that moment. If it's not, move it on out, and my body will go, it's not yours.
Yeah.
But it's coming into presence that is like, like if I'm out walking or whatever, and like I'm going, I go, stop. And I literally stop walking. I shut my eyes. I take a couple of breaths and I go, is this mine? No, it's someone else's tape that has gotten caught into my head. Thank you for sharing. I want to be within myself. Okay. And it goes, and then I'm back in my body. I'm present. Right?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it could be a car driving by. I'll be like, oh, come on, stop leaving your garbage with me. But in saying that, I'm the one that's wrong because I'm picking it up.
Right.
They never asked for me to pick it up.
Well, I would say on an energy level, it does happen. There are, that they are specifically, that's a lot of the manipulation that's happening too through our media and mind control is very specifically manipulating people's energy so that they're, a lot of things feed off of the fear, and we're talking energetic source. We're not talking like in the.
And I wasn't going down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I was just saying like a car just driving by, right? Like a car driving by, and all of a sudden I'm like, I feel wonky.
Right.
They could have been having a conversation. They could have had the news on in the car. That has nothing to do with me.
Right.
They never asked me to pick it up, but my energetics picked it up, and I'm like, what are you doing? It's not yours to have. Move it on out. Thank you for sharing. And so I'm saying to people who are listening, we're not saying this is like every day, all day long, but sometimes just take a breath, take a step back and say, is this me? If it's not, let it go.
Yeah.
Right. And then you think about you think of that song, Let It Go. And it's like, it might be in a kid's show, but we all need to learn it.
Right. The other thing, and I talk about in my book that really helps me too, is, you talk about getting present, and it's so important, right? And it's funny, when I was in the corporate world and I really had my presence down, and, I'd be in meetings and stuff, and I'd have so many people be like, wow, and if I couldn't show up to like a meeting that was going to be highly political, there would people be like, can you please be there? We need your presence in this meeting. It's so calm, because everybody else, when the egos start flying, that's, everybody goes into fear mode. But in my book, one of the things getting present is being in your heart space. So really just keeping your attention on your heart, which is, your most intelligent source
Or your
information,
heart song.
right? Hmm?
Or your heart song.
Yes. And, you know, that's when, I can, very quickly, even you can just connect and just start feeling that joy and that energy coming out, radiating from it, and, opening yourself up then to guidance from your, inner self and higher self and such. So
Mhm.
huge. And of course, when you're in your heart space, as I would be in a lot of meetings in the corporate world, sitting in my heart space, that energy is going out to people too. And people are not accustomed to that, right? Because most people's awareness is just somewhere outside their forehead, the mind, because
Yeah.
they're not practicing presence or this, but it can completely change the dynamics of a room and where you're at.
Well, it's funny because I had a boss at one time. He was a commander, like the architect commander, right? And he'd be going to these big meetings with all the VPs and the big board, and he'd wear a red shirt. And I'm like, "You're joking, right?" He goes, "What?" And I go, "Whatever." And he'd go off to the meeting. He'd come back and he'd just be raging. And I go, "Can you do us all a favor?" And he goes, "What?" And I go, "Can you bring some other colored shirts in to change if you forget, if you have that meeting?" "What are you talking about?" I said, "Like a light blue, a white." Like, he thinks I'm off my rocker. And I'm like, "Whatever." And then I go, "You have that meeting?" And he goes, "I'll change." I go, "Thank you." And he comes back from the meeting and goes, "I don't know what the heck you do, but that was weird." I go, "You're welcome." Or
See?
we're in a meeting and it's getting too crazy and I'm like, "Oh, I can't do this." And I literally cover my belly button because then it takes my energy out of the room. They
Mm,
can keep going. And like you said, you send the love because you've closed off to your door to collecting anything,
right. Yeah.
right? And it's just, yeah, like it changes how you can handle me. And I mean, this could be even like you have to go to a function. There's lots of different energies in the room, right?
Mhm.
Cover your belly button. Put a piece of tape over your belly button. It
Mm,
can't affect you.
yeah.
You can still share the love. Their stuff can't come back.
Mm. That's interesting. I have not heard that about the belly button before. So can you just share a little bit more about the belly button and why that is?
Sure. Well, think about the belly button as how you came into life.
Mhm.
All your nutrients, all your emotions, everything comes through the belly button through your mom.
Okay.
So whatever she's going through, you're getting,
Mhm.
right? That's why there can be womb trauma,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? And so when you're out in public or you have to like, and the person who taught me was she used to say like she had to go to bar functions. I go, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Well, for what my job." And I'm like, "Okay." And she's an energy worker side gig too, right? Like all of us. And she'd put a rock in her belly button, depending on what she felt she needed to enter into this room. So sometimes she'd use tiger's eye or, like obsidian or whatever, right? And I'm like, interesting. But I was still young then. I didn't realize, right? I'm like, yeah, I'm in my 20s, whatever. And then I'm like, I did it one day going to the bar and I'm like, this is a game changer because I actually could go and have fun without picking up all the energies,
Right.
right? Because my friends who would drink and smoke and whatever are going, "How come you have the hangover?" And I go, "I don't know, but this sucks." Like I'd be out for like 2 days because I was having that empathic hangover,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? I might not have been drinking the alcohol, but I would take it in through my pores. Once I put the rocker, I covered my belly button. That was fun.
Hmm. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I put a light around me. I have Archangel Michael protect me through it, and that helps me. But prior to that, I mean, I've been places, especially like I went to a Bruce Springsteen concert once and we're fine. And just all of a sudden, I was so overcome with the energy. This was before I had this practice in there. But when when that happens to you and you're with people who don't understand that you're actually feeling everyone in you, it's it can be pretty challenging with the other people.
Well, and it's funny because like I used to use the golden egg, right? Before I knew about archangels and all that, right? I just covered myself with a golden egg that no one can penetrate. And sometimes it would penetrate. And I'm like, nothing has ever penetrated the rock.
Huh, that's interesting.
And it's funny because like my nephew now is really into the concerts or whatever. He sends me clips and I'm like, oh, cool. And even sometimes the clips are too much because I can pick up the energy of the stadium.
Yeah.
So I know concerts are they're not my future.
Yeah.
Or unless I can really say, okay, Michael, we really got to work together. Like,
right. For sure. Yeah.
so the clients that are coming to you right now, what is the theme?
What's the theme?
Mm-hmm.
Typically, I'm in the corporate world and I am not feeling fulfilled in the work I'm doing. I have a lot of anxiety and stress. A lot have challenges with leadership above them. So it's really, they're really getting reflections back of their alignment to love through the corporate world. So it's helping to, get that alignment. My dog, she loves what we're talking about because she came over
They
here
always
like
visit.
wanting my attention. She's a very very in tuned energy dog. Actually, she probably could have been an emotional support dog. But she just likes to come over. I always know we're in like a really good topic when she comes over. Yeah, so really helping them to get clarity. So that some people it's just getting clear career clarity. Some people it's just helping them through, I'm really dealing with this issue here and I really need help on it. And then others, it's taking them all the way through to discover and align to, embodying their purpose, which their real purpose that you can, I call it your soul mission, but you can only get to really knowing what that purpose is when you've stripped away all of those beliefs that society gave to you, your parents, all the things we talked about earlier, plus your beliefs around money, establishing that connection to your higher self and what I like to call your spiritual support team. So any of the archangels, ascended masters and such. So you can get really the clear guidance on why you're really supposed to be here, because nobody else can tell you that, right? And I know people could be walking around thinking, well, so-and-so told me I was really good at this as a child, so that should be my life purpose. And maybe that's not, and maybe it is, but it's something you have to discover on your own.
And it's funny because I was told to be a nurse, a teacher, a healer. And I'm like, yep, I'm all of those as I'm my lighthouse.
Yeah.
I'm here to be the light.
Exactly, a light worker.
And that's a good clarification too, of it doesn't need to be a profession.
That's true. I agree.
Right? Because when I was younger, all I wanted to be was a mom and a wife. And then I was like, I have to get a career. What the hell is that? And then I didn't like that either. But I always, from 3 years old through to today, I've been the lighthouse.
Right. Well, it would be great if our society actually, we had probably more moms or, at home with their children being the light for their children. I think that
or dads.
Dads, yeah, that's what moms, parents. Yeah. So, but it is, since you brought up light, like my clients are light workers who probably don't even know that that's why they're here yet, or just waking up to that.
There's lots of secret ones in corporate, but we need them there.
You have to be. I actually have a post going out tomorrow on LinkedIn asking people, are you a light worker making waves in the corporate world? Because I'm just curious to see, and will you say
that? I'll have to answer that.
Yeah, answer it. That would be great. Because there are, and unfortunately, until you know how that you understand the things we were just talking about with light and everything, the corporate world can be a brutal place because you're in with so many different people, so many situations and stuff are just
My
activating.
personalities.
Yeah, and it's activating all this stuff within you that is really, I think, is a positive thing if you're on an expansion and wanting, all of that with your consciousness. But if you're not aware of it yet, it can be debilitating at times, right? In some of the cases that were, and especially when you're in like very highly competitive cutthroat environments, which I have worked in some of those in like startups and in the entertainment industry can be very cutthroat. So very, not as aligned, more about who things like that, than being aligned to merit and purpose and all of that. So, and not all of it. I'm not making a blanket statement.
I hear what you're saying. And it's interesting because I've been getting more people of what's this all for? Right? Especially in the last few years. And then it's like, well, yeah, I need to generate some money, but I don't believe it's in my job anymore. Where else can I generate some money? And just wanting more fulfillment than a paycheck.
Yeah, right? And that's the data person in me. Gallup does their State of the Global Workplace report, every year. I don't know when they started it, but this year globally, I think this year 77% of workers are disengaged at work, and that can be based on culture, leadership, their well-being, and salary, even to a certain extent. But they were saying, I think it was 51% of workers worldwide were actively looking or planning on starting a search for a new job because, they're looking for the answer outside of themselves. When these answers are, I think,
and that's a good point to say, because you can change the job, but it's still you going to that job.
Yeah. Wherever
so the same issues, you're going to find the same people mirroring back to you until you look in the mirror and say, I can change this. I need to change this.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I like. So when I originally started in my company, I worked with homes, right? Clearing the energy of the home. So when they came home from the stressful work day, they had their sanctuary. Right. Because I even realized in my own life, it wasn't important to go for a massage outside of my home or for counseling outside of my home if I came home to the same crap. Because all that release came back tenfold as soon as I walked into the crap. Right. So if you clear the crap from the house, then you can go and get it all released however you need to release it. And then you come home and you're in your sanctuary and you're good.
Right.
So it's no use leaving the job thinking it's the job.
Right. Well, and that's what we do.
The crap's within you.
Yeah. And I was in that pattern too before I woke up and realized that. And, I've talked to other people too. And if you say to people who are not awake yet, like family and stuff like that, and you're like, well, you can actually, it's just showing you where your energy is out of alignment with love, and you can, transform that back to love, and you're going to change what's in your experience. They actually, because they're coming from ego still, they get very defensive, right? I didn't ask for this. I'm not being like that. They're being like that. But once you experience it, you can start to feel how empowering it is to know that you have that control within yourself, right? That you don't have to rely on what's happening with other people and all of that, but you can change who you are. Like the saying, be the change you want to see in the world, embody it. And what's going to show up in your external experience is going to match that of which you are. So, yeah.
Yes.
Pretty powerful stuff.
It's well, and I just going back to the horses for a second, it's like the one little guy, like when his mom brought him, it was kind of chaotic. So much so he fell off the horse. We've never in a year never had anyone fall off a horse. His dad brings him. Totally different kid. giggles, has fun. Like he's not communicative, right? Like right? And so I'm like, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Gee.
and so and it's even like when I see these parents like and their kid wipes out or whatever, and they instantly hug. And I'm like, you're
Mhm.
anchoring the pain,
Yeah.
right? Kind of hold them aside. Anything bleeding? Any boo-boos? Do you need a kiss in the forehead? And once they start breathing again and realize they're okay, and mom or dad are here to support them, it's all good. Then you can bring in for the love.
Right.
But before that, you're gonna end up with needy adults.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to learn how to let energy move through you, right? So it doesn't get
Mm-hmm.
stuck within your body, right? Because that's going to create what's showing up in your, not, and also create illness within your body as well.
Yeah. So I don't know if you read the Indigo Children book.
I
It
did
was
not.
years and years ago. And I remember reading it going, well, yeah, they're just waking up to who we are. Because basically the book is saying like the indigos are the ones like this is before empath was the word, right? And they'd be saying like if a kid got hit in the playground or hurt in the playground, the indigos circle. And I was like, yeah, because we're the ones that can feel their pain to help them.
Right.
Yeah. So I was just laughing.
Um, yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, someone told me to read the book. I never did. My children, I think, are in that age range. They're in their late teens now from the Indigo Children.
Oh, the teens could be crystals. I'm an indigo.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So the indigos have been slowly filing in 50s, 60s, 70s.
Okay. Okay.
And then the stars and the crystals, I don't know what age group, but yeah, and it depends on the parent or the grandparents
Mm,
to what the kids can come in. Because if the parents or the grandparents are awakened, then they can come in.
mm,
Right. So I have a girlfriend who is 95 and she's awakened and her kids are awakened and her grandchildren are off the charts awakened.
mm.
But they're also highly autistic,
Yeah.
some of them, right? So it's interesting to see the three dynamics
Mhm.
all in one family and how they support each other and work through each other. And yeah.
Yeah, I see it with my daughters. My youngest daughter is especially, she's very tuned in and um I can have some pretty good conversations with her. And my oldest daughter is as well, but she's not as talkative about it. So it's something that she keeps within herself. Um, so
Or
just
maybe she's trying to figure it out on her own,
yeah.
to figure out the feelings that are going on. And yeah, because my grandniece, she's so cute. I'm not saying that because I'm biased, because she comes up with the weirdest. Like the other day, I'm pickling her and she's like, Auntie, no. I said, no. And she goes, it hurts the baby. I said, what do you mean it hurts the baby? I said, where's the baby? And she goes, in my tummy.
Mm.
I said, you have a baby in your tummy? And she goes, yeah. And by this time, I'm looking at her mom, right? And I go, so you're going to have the baby in 22 years? And she goes, yeah, because she's 3.
Okay.
Right? And I just laugh. And then I'm driving home and um, I'm like, oh, it's that timeline. We were together before. Just like,
Got it. Well, you touched on past lives and stuff, regression.
mm-hmm,
There's Dr. Brian Weiss, who wrote like,
mm-hmm,
yeah, many lives, many
mm-hmm,
masters stuff. And so I was reading those books when my oldest daughter was like 2 or 3. She was probably
mm-hmm.
around 3 at the time. And he says in there, one way you can like test this out, so ask a small child who they were the last time they were big, because they're still close to that, right? And so we were sitting there, my youngest daughter was between me and my ex-husband. Well, he was my then husband. And she was sitting there on the bed next to us. And I just looked at her and I was like, Ava, who were you the last time you were big? And she looked at me and she was like, and she goes, she pulls the blanket up. She's like, Mommy, those are my parts. That's not for you to know. And we were just like, oh my God. It's like crazy. And she would talk a lot. She started talking a lot about how Sunina lived down the street and she knew Sunina last time when she was big, but we never really figured out exactly who person Sunina was, probably someone when they went to the park with the nanny and stuff at the time. But so it was really interesting to see that when they're smaller and how connected they are to those past experiences.
Well, and even my nephew, he was about 3, and I was picking him up from gymnastics, I don't know, whatever. And his friend's like, "That's your auntie, not your mom." He goes, "It's my mom too." Right? And I go, whatever. and then so she went to her mom and she's like, "He's calling his auntie mom. Like, that's just wrong." And her mom's like, "That's between them."
Yeah.
Right? So we're driving home and I said, "Why are you calling me mom?" He goes, "Well, your mom too." I said, "Okay." And he walks into the house, and by this time my sister's home. Walks into the house, he goes, "Mom, yeah, this is Auntie's mom too. If you have a problem, it's yours." And he walked away. And I went, "Oh, isn't that neat?"
That's great.
Right?
Yeah.
And it was funny because like later on in life, whatever, I'd be like, "Quit it." He's like,
yeah. Well, they say that,
you don't get away with that crap.
Yeah. Well, no, like Dr. Brian Weiss said, souls travel in groups, lifetime over after, reenacting.
Well, we have our soul family,
Yeah.
right? So I could be the parent, I could be the child, I could be the aunt, I could, and for instance, like I was working with my counselor who at the time was very, very guided. And I said, "Why am I finding all these single moms?" Right? Because it was pulling at my heartstrings because 1, I wasn't in a relationship. 2, all I ever wanted was kids and I wasn't getting either and didn't get either. Right? And she says, "Because every one of those kids has to have you in their life for whatever reason." I go, "Okay." And then I became fine with it. Right? And like to this day, I get the single moms or the moms, like for whatever reason, the kid needs me somewhere in their life. Maybe not that close, but just, like they might have been distant in a different life and we're still kind of distant. Yeah. But yeah, like, oh, kids are just, and it's funny because like I love how you tried that with your daughter, how genuine it is. Like you're like, "Oh, let's see what the book is really saying, like see if it's true or not." And then it would be like, I wouldn't have let that one go. Right? I would have been like, because bedtime is when they usually talk the most. Right? Especially with boys. And I'd be like, as you're tucking them in, like, "So what do you have to tell me?" "Well, nothing." I'm like, "Okay, we'll just cuddle." "Okay." And then all of a sudden things just spill, right? So you could say, "What do you mean those parts aren't for me?"
Yeah.
"Where are you? What's going on?"
Right.
Right? And this is your oldest?
Yeah. She'll be 20 soon. So.
Well, no, but just to say that so young.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because with my grandniece, like the flashback was she was pregnant. And I was the older as she was pregnant as an adult, not a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
Right. And so I was like, "Oh, interesting." And then I'm like, "Do I have to know anything about this?" No. Okay, carry on.
Yeah. And there's the story of that boy who was, I think Lou Gehrig. I forget the name of the book. That was a really very interesting story about he just came into this when at a very young age, started just sharing all this information about the teams, manager and all of that, So he publicity through it too. They like met, I can't remember the name of the Tommy Lasorda, maybe, of the Dodgers and stuff like that.
Okay.
I really it's a really fun story. I just can't remember the name of it now, but just all of the the stuff that he knew that just
Yeah.
couldn't have been known. And of course, as he got older, I think the memories started, getting weaker. But it's pretty cool.
Very cool. Well, it's just like that. I don't know if you heard about the little American kid that they had an accident in Italy, and the parents decided to give up the organs,
Oh,
right? And time, I think 60 Minutes, whatever, had filmed it, and then over time, the parents decided they wanted to meet as many people that their son had donated to, and they met everyone. And this one guy who got his heart said, "Did your son love pistachio ice cream?" And they started laughing. He goes, "It's really hard to find, right?" And he goes, "Yeah, but that's why we go to Italy."
oh, oh,
He
wow.
could not get enough pistachio ice cream. And then someone else with their eyes, like he was such an artist, or like, and it was just amazing. Like they all had pieces of their son in different ways from all their organs.
That's
And
really
so that's the thing, like we don't know how we're connected. We don't know what the bigger picture is,
mhm.
but we just got to be present in all of it, and just be our true authentic self. Choose our words carefully, because our words are how we're presenting in the world,
Mhm.
and yeah. Well, this has been fascinating. What do you have for the listeners? And I'm going to ask that you all subscribe, because I have fantastic, authentic conversations. What would you like to say as final thoughts, final ideas to help people?
Um, I think the one thing that I always like to just tell people, we touched on it a little bit, but to not be afraid of what's coming up for you in the stories, because they are just stories and they're not yours. And I think when you work with people like you or myself or whatever, that, we can provide that space to not only help you through what you're going through in that moment, but to be able to have tools to bring out into your life so you can be very empowered. And we are all here. It's all a journey, the journey back to knowing who we really are, which is our divine self, and that we are all connected. We are an expression of God itself. And we are meant to be living beautiful, joyful lives and being in service of others in whatever way that is for you, right? Like you said, it doesn't have to be a job. You could be a parent. You could just be somebody walking around, shining your light and just going through the grocery store, and people are feeling that. And that's you. That's what you're here for. So the journey is to come back to discovering all of that. But you're not meant to be here under fear and scarcity and suffering. You're meant to be, you're meant to have a beautiful life, because you are a beautiful, divine person, soul. So
Well, she couldn't have summed it up better. Anyways, once again, it was a pleasure to have Amy on my show. Follow us, subscribe, and this is Authentic Conversations, presented by Transition Clarity. I'm your host, Adele Bernard. Have a good day.
thank you.